Ooh, welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.com. Pick up a free hat and or t-shirt every single year. I'm a diehard. For this man, to my right, my co-host, Bo Brack. I'm Johnny Venerable here on a quiet little Thursday in the offseason as we await the NFL Combine, but still plenty to discuss, including a certain free agent wide receiver, Bo, that's making the rounds on the Twitter streets, potential target for the Arizona Cardinals, or maybe not.
Yeah, probably the latter, right? Maybe not. Probably not. Most likely not. Not going to happen as far as the Arizona Cardinals go. But yeah, also you're starting to see some movement. The Chicago Bears releasing two starters, one Pro Bowler, and of course a perennial Pro Bowler at one point in their safety, Jackson, but probably two guys that don't fit as far as what the Arizona Cardinals are going to do. Like the guard that they released struggled mightily last season. He's 31 years old and probably just won't be a fit unless Monty Ossenfort wants to kick the tires on him. But, the left guard position is one of the ones that we view as a need for the Cardinals going into the 2024 offseason, but just don't think that their left guard of the future became available today.
I'm going to put our viewers on the spot here. Notable free agents that are going to hit the open market this offseason, Bo. And there are a couple names that stand out. The several atop this list: T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Michael Pittman Jr., and Calvin Ridley all fit what the Arizona Cardinals need at wide receiver. But, Bo, do they fit the Cardinals, especially someone like Mike Evans, who, I don't know, is 31, 32 years old. His body's a little bit banged up. And then you think about the fact he's a legend, a la Larry Fitzgerald, that be with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Evans is the Larry Fitzgerald of Tampa Bay. I mean, he's a guy that has gone over 1,000 yards. What is it now? 9 consecutive seasons. Very impressive resume. And Tampa Bay would be foolish to let him out of their grasp, as he showed, in the playoffs, even in their final game of the season against the Lions. Like he was a guy that was a go-to player for them, making big plays down the stretch. And he's going to command a large salary. I mean, if you look at the Larry Fitzgerald deals at the end of his career, add inflation to that, and I think you're going to see Mike Evans probably be right around 20 plus million, close to on average what he's going to command this offseason. And going into his age 31 season, like we start to look at these players and where they fit as far as year 2 of a rebuild. And I think anybody over the age of 30, not going to be ageist here, Johnny, but I just don't think it fits into the Arizona Cardinals plans, especially when you start to look at this wide receiver class in the draft. It makes zero sense at the end of the day. It really does, because this draft class, as Daniel Jeremiah pointed out recently, like it's 11 deep as far as the top 100, and you can find guys that can make plays for you and that are going to be controllable, that aren't going to make anywhere close to $20 million per season. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's funny. You look at those names on that list, and a lot of those names, probably all of them at receiver, are going to stay with their respective teams. Like T. Higgins probably going to be tagged, Mike Evans tagged and or extended, right? Michael Pittman Jr. is going to get an extension. Calvin Ridley, even in one of the quietest 1,000-yard receiving seasons you'll ever see, might get tagged and extended. It speaks to the fact that, hey, the Cardinals should probably get their own version of that in the NFL draft, because it's probably going to age pretty well. Even guys, I would consider Calvin Ridley mid, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, we got to prioritize him. Mike Evans is in his early 30s. Can't let him go. Have to extend him, right? Hall of Fame player. It's like that's probably the best argument I can make to anybody why a receiver needs to be a priority either at 4 or 27. But back to the original point about Mike Evans, like even if Mike Evans was allowed to hit free agency, if Tampa Bay's like, go test the market, which if Jason Light allows that, that's a fireable offense in my opinion. Mike Evans does not fit the Cardinals' timeline at all. They are trying to get younger. They are trying to get more athletic. Mike Evans is probably a lesser version of what you had in DeAndre Hopkins toward the end. So if you're not gonna pay DeAndre Hopkins, what was it, $27 million last year, and instead you're gonna pay Mike Evans, who's older than DeAndre Hopkins, close to $30 million per season, tell me how that makes sense at all. You would have just kept DeAndre Hopkins.
It doesn't. It's when you look at this draft class and maybe you're trying to spice things up. I mean, it seems like the next wide receiver one of the Arizona Cardinals is going to be through the 2024 NFL draft, and anybody
Yes.
else is going to be depth pieces. And to go out there and break the bank on depth and also break the bank on a guy that's 30 plus years old, it just doesn't fit the moves of this organization. And sure, in the short term under Monty Ossenfort, it's not the moves of a rebuilding club. And I think it would be a foolish idea for anybody to think that like Mike Evans is a legit option for the Arizona Cardinals. It's one thing to look at Mike Evans and show him respect and give him his flowers for an incredible career. It's another to say, hey, let's go out there and try to, have lightning strike twice with a 30-plus-year-old receiver. Now, you were able to get away with at one point a little career resurgence for AJ Green, but it wasn't anything that Fitz did in the later stages of his career. That's not how this game goes. There's exceptions to it, right? And Mike Evans very well could be that. But, most likely the numbers tell you that at some point, and it's tough to pinpoint when it happens, that production falls off an absolute cliff. And you don't want to be the team that has that player under contract for gaudy guaranteed dollars when that happens.
It's going around the valley, this take, and I can't imagine serious people within the organization would ever consider it. This has nothing to do with Mike Evans, the person. It's all about the timeline. It doesn't fit their timeline. The Cardinals are not all in this season, and he's the missing piece to a Super Bowl. Like I see somebody in the chat basically saying greater than you want. This is from Jeremy. Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 5th-year option, significantly more impactful than Mike Evans. Like Mike Evans, we have seen the best from Mike Evans, right? Mm-hmm. They were fantastic this year. They made the divisional round. Kudos to Baker Mayfield for making that happen. But guess what? Tampa's probably going to draft a wide receiver in this year's class, looking for the heir apparent to Mike Evans. I think like we were all spoiled by Larry Fitzgerald during his time here, certainly. But like his game aged exceptionally well with Bruce Arians and Carson Palmer and playing out of the slot. So maybe some people have conditioned themselves into thinking 30 is the new 25. It is not. Larry is an outlier. And I think Mike Evans is going to be a Hall of Famer one day. But to your point, like he's one soft tissue injury away from, that's it. We're done. Like AJ Green, when it went quickly. Right. Like I think D-Hop is at that point where it's very much touch and go year to year. It's why Tennessee only gave him a 1-year contract. I also think his legacy in Tampa and what he means to that franchise, this is not a hot take, is exponentially more than Arizona or wherever else. Like Tampa Bay, because they're not paying anybody, they're going to give him a nice legacy contract that nobody else would give him. And that's what they should do. He's one of the best players in the history of their franchise. Kudos to him. But man, it just underscores the narrative. Like, I think people are so conditioned to the dysfunction that was Steve Keim roster building, not Steve Keim off the field, also dysfunctional, but the roster construction, it's the opposite of what serious franchises do. This is the greatest wide receiver class of the last half decade. Why would you then turn around and sign a 30-year-old to a max deal? Makes no sense.
Well, yeah. And as far as you pointing out, DeAndre Hopkins and basically, making him leave and absorbing that contract like they did last year and then turning around and then a player basically the same age with almost, a similar resume. It's bonkers. It's bananas. Yeah. It makes no sense. And none of that to me speaks of Monty Ossenfort and what he's done so far with the Arizona Cardinals. Will at House of Cards, I think 08 on Twitter, it pointed it out to me. It was, and you had been telling me about that, about, Mike Evans getting some sort of run here in the area, about a potential target for the Arizona Cardinals. And I just, it doesn't, in no way does it add up. In no way does it equal. Like, I mean, Mike Evans wearing an Arizona Cardinals uniform, making plays for them, sure, it'd be nice. But when you enter into all the variables, and then also, as you mentioned with the draft, and you can look at their 4th overall, and you've got 3 players, including one guy that might just fall into your lap, who's the top overall prospect on a lot of guys' draft boards, and Marvin Harrison Jr., that you have an opportunity to select him and have him controllable for 5 years at a very reasonable price in the NFL for what you're going to get from the production potentially from Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze. It would be organizational malpractice
It would
if
be.
you were to pass on that in favor of, yes, a pretty close to rubber stamp Hall of Famer Mike Evans.
Ken Weber in the chat putting it well. I'd rather be a real NFL team drafting and developing our own 100%. Humble Rumble. If Marvin isn't there at 4, I'd be happy with another O-line. I don't like trading back. Certainly an option for this team. Let me ask you this, Bo, because we haven't really talked about this recently, and we're about 3 weeks away from the start of free agency really kicking into high gear, where the Cardinals are going to be active. Maybe we'll, like we talked about yesterday, have the tea leaves read and know if the Cardinals are going to get a shot at MHJ. Maybe not, though. Maybe New England stays put until that Thursday in late April. If that's the case, are you comfortable with the Cardinals receiving core as is going into the draft? So let's just assume Hollywood Brown is not re-signed, which is what we're assuming right now.
Right.
You've got Zach Pascal, TBD on Greg Dortch. Rondell Moore is in the house. And then, of course, our boy from the Radio Row, Michael Wilson, is your default wide receiver 1. Like, are you okay with, we're going to roll with these guys and some of these younger undrafted players, depth guys, until we can level set in the draft, see what we come out of that with, and then maybe target some guys in May? Are you comfortable with that approach?
No.
What do you mean no? So
There's There's 3 wide receivers under contract, but it doesn't mean me not being comfortable with that. It means they go out there and they sign Mike Evans. I mean, I think that would point to, and very similar to how Monty approached the offensive line last offseason, where he made sure to bring back Will Hernandez, who he viewed as his starting right guard. Will Hernandez was great in his usual self that he's been in the desert. And then Calvin Beachum, who was solid, as your swing tackle. He got those guys immediately under 2-year, very affordable contracts. Now, I don't think that there's anybody that you can kind of re-sign and bring back in the house outside of, a Greg Dortch. But I think that it points to a very specific tier of wide receiver that's, well below a Mike Evans. But, the DJ Sharks of the world, the Donovan Peoples-Jones of the world, those guys that are going to be able to be very affordable, that you can ink to, a pretty solid team-friendly 2-year deal, not a ton of guaranteed money, and say, hey, we've got depth, but, it's pointing to where we're going to get our primary playmaking from the draft.
I love this comment here from Andrew, because I've seen this shared on social media. I'd rather re-sign Hollywood for 10 to 12 million, have a trio of Hollywood, MHJ, and Michael Wilson, and then stick Hollywood in the slot. I just don't think, Andrew, they value Hollywood Brown, certainly to that extent, at 10 to 12 million. I think Hollywood Brown is a contingency plan if they can't get a top receiver. I also think that they did 1 year with undersized receivers and Michael Wilson. They don't want to do that again. Like, they have a type. We all have a type in life, right? We like what we like. Valentine's Day yesterday, people liking what they're liking. Congratulations. Cardinals have a type at receiver. It's not under 6 foot. It's not undersized guys that are small and frail. And Hollywood had the worst combination imaginable. He was undersized and not available. He was injured last year. So it's like, let's double down on that, because what ends up happening is, if you do that and you give Hollywood Brown a nice little chunk of change and then he gets hurt again, and then you got to turn to Michael Bidwell and you got to look at Jonathan Gann and just say, sorry, I didn't actually know this was going to happen. Oh, you did. We saw it last year and the year before that. So I think Hollywood Brown, if he's back in Arizona, which I don't think is likely at all, $2 to $3 million, $5 max. And I know our boy Brad Spielberger at PFF saying they can't afford to lose him. They were a much more efficient team offensively when he was not playing for them. Like the best games that they had this year, Pittsburgh and of course Philadelphia. And then I would even say in the finale against Seattle, he was not present and accounted for. So I would wish Hollywood well. I do not think it makes sense to bring him back at all.
Yeah. Everybody has a type, right? Like, no doubt about it. And Monty Ossenfort likes over 6 feet.
What's your type, Brock? You want to talk
about but that's what I was going to say. It's like everybody's got a type, but for everybody, like Sidney Sweeney and Chris Hemsworth is also going to be everybody's type. And that's Marvin Harrison Jr. as far as this wide receiver class goes. You might have a type, but everybody's going to love, the absolutely no doubt about it knockout beauty as far as, Hemsworth and Sweeney and Marvin Harrison Jr. to Cardinals fans.
If anybody in this chat says that Sidney Sweeney is not your type, Shame on you. I
That's
disagree
right.
with you. You are a liar. All right, back on the rails here. Tremendous comparison analogy by my guy Bo Brock. Donovan Peoples-Jones, according to Ken Weber. You pointed this out about a month ago, Bo, that you thought this would be a nice fit. The
Mhm.
ex-7th rounder out of Michigan that spent some time with Drew Petzing in Cleveland. I think that's a tremendous fit. He was kind of underused, certainly in Detroit this year, and you could potentially get him for next to nothing, less than Zach Pascal even.
Yeah, you absolutely could, and I think that just kind of makes too much damn sense, and it's going
Yeah.
to take players of that ilk to kind of give yourself a little bit of that safety net, a little bit of that comfort, like, ooh, like what if this doesn't work out at the top of the draft, or are we going to have to maybe roll the dice on a prospect that we view has some red flags and we don't have a full conviction? And I think that, like, if you got somebody like Donovan Peoples-Jones, because like once you do get one of those draft picks in house, Johnny, like then it becomes kind of a crowded room, doesn't it? Like as far as the starting wide receiver core goes, like you've got Michael Wilson at the Z.
Yeah.
You're probably going to draft your X, and I think you feel comfortable, of some comfort with Rondell Moore in the slot, or whether or not they bring back Greg Dortch, and then of course what Trey McBride brings to the receiving game, and then his tight end too, and Higgy Bear and Elijah Higgins. Then it becomes a little cumbersome there. Like then you're like, okay, like are you going to be able to persuade free agents anyway? Like it's the worst secret in the league. Like you guys are going to go out there and likely draft a wide receiver. Like this is where's the PT? Where's the snaps? Where are the snaps going to come from?
Yeah, and I think you just guarantee Donovan Peoples-Jones of an opportunity and say, come here and win a job. Go beat out somebody. Because you're not these lesser tier free agents, respectfully, aren't going to be guaranteed anything other than their
Yeah.
money, other than their
Can I
guaranteed dollars.
can I backtrack just a little bit, because I want to give a little grace to my guy Brad Spielberger, because I'm looking at impending soon to be free agents for the Arizona Cardinals, and I think he
Yeah.
just had to do Hollywood Brown because that's the only person that people would view as value. Like if you're writing a story and you're saying that, hey, of the 32 teams, the Arizona Cardinals, the one guy that they have to keep is Elijah Wilkinson or Tristan Colon, because these are the types of players outside of like Carlos Watkins, LJ Collier, Lecky Fotu, Josh Woods. Like there's not one name. Like he had to put Hollywood Brown, even though Cardinals fans that follow closely, just like our well-informed listeners and viewers out there, people in the chat, like they know that Hollywood Brown is very unlikely, but he couldn't, in with good reason, put one of those lesser names on there. Am I right?
Yeah. I mean, you got to
I
just
mean,
cross the finish line with
who
your
would you
article.
say it is? Who would you say? I mean, if for like the realistic option, like here, I'll read off for the impending
Hey,
free
hit me,
agents.
hit me with some names for the audience.
Okay, all right. It's not going to be Marlon Mack. It's Hollywood Brown. You've got exclusive rights, Greg Dortch. You've got Jeff Swaim. You got Elijah Wilkinson. You've got Tristan Colon. You've got Carlos Watkins, L.J. Collier, Lecky Fotu, Josh Woods, Chris Barnes, Zeke Turner, Antonio Hamilton, and that's about it.
The two that stand out to me, I thought Chris Barnes played really well at the end of the year. I would bring back Chris Barnes 100%. Elijah Wilkinson's PFF grade was damn good the last month of the season. But both those guys you could sign for like near the vet minimum. So
Right.
like you're not.
I think he could bring back most of those guys on really team friendly deals, and I wouldn't be shocked
Yeah,
if Monty did that. Exactly, did that.
I 100% agree. Hollywood Brown is like a top 20 free agent on most sites, not just PFF. Like I hope he does well. He's not going to do well in this system. The system's not built for unless you play bigger than you are, a la Greg Dortch, which we don't know his future yet. Like Hollywood Brown, and this is going to come off as a knock. He's a finesse player, and he's a tough MFer, and he's an NFL player. I'm not questioning anybody's toughness, but like I think of Hollywood Brown, and I think streaking against undersized average athletes in the Big 12 with Oklahoma. Like that's what I think of. Like Baltimore was fine to trade him away because he didn't really fit what they wanted to do after a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would do well. I mean, if the Commanders were not loaded with receivers, like send him back with Cliff Kingsbury. Like that's the kind of offense he needs to play in. The Cardinals, I'm so thankful they have gotten away from small and spreading things out. And just they can go north and south. Like look at the teams that were in the Super Bowl, especially San Francisco. Why is San Francisco so successful? They're just so much more physically imposing than you. Ayuk and Debo and Kittle and Trent Williams, they just pound you to death. And the Cardinals couldn't tackle them this year. And who was the most successful receiver that the Cardinals had this year? It was a tight end because he was physical, and Trey McBride. And Michael Wilson was great when he played bigger than his size against San Francisco. Little receivers work at some point, the Steve Smiths of the world, but you don't want to have that be your bread and butter. The Cardinals invested their entire receiving core undersized with a quarterback that, fair or not, is also undersized. It's the opposite of team building 101. And so why would you double down on that? You wouldn't, and they're not going to.
Yeah, and Chris Sims pointed this out when he was talking about, the offensive schemes of the Rams and of San Francisco at times, and what you've seen with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City is like the beauty of the simplicity of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what do they do, especially with guys like Travis Kelce, and you can kind of emulate that with Trey McBride here in the desert, is when you've got big, fast, strong players, what does that create? Mismatches, and you create those mismatches, and you just pound them throughout the games. That's why you see why the Cardinals lean on James Conner, on Trey McBride, at times at Michael Wilson when he was rolling there in the final 2 games of the season after that pick 6.
Yeah.
But why you couldn't find it, and why you couldn't consistently lean on 5'9" Hollywood Brown, who was hobbled, who wasn't at his tip-top speed. It wasn't creating any mismatches, so he wasn't in the offensive game plan.
I like this suggestion, Jalen Blair. If we sign a non-wide receiver number 1, I like Josh Reynolds. He's played for the Rams once upon a time. Too. He's from the Lions now. He had a tough divisional round.
In Tennessee, I think at times when Monty was there too. Yeah,
or a tough NFC Championship game. Got height and been on an offense similar to the Cardinals. I like that. I like this from Jake. You can come out of the draft potentially with a wide receiver 1 and a borderline 2-3 if you scout and develop well. Don't need to spend much in free agency. 100%. Michael Wilson, I saw another site that had him listed as a wide receiver 3. Like, I think he's earned enough. He'll run with the ones this offseason. Now, is he going to be able to hold on to it all season with injuries? That's not going to be decided now. But like, if people don't think he's going to be like their default number 1 receiver this entire offseason, you are nuts. The only way he goes down is if he gets hurt. So yeah, I'm with you, Jake. You insert Marvin, and Zach Pascal, Rondell Moore are hanging around, and then who's to say? And I'm all for this. If you want to double dip, if you've got an extra pick in the 3rd round, and there's a special receiver, or even with pick 105 in the 4th round, add somebody else. Get more bodies in the mix, right? Marvin's the exception. You splurge on him at number 4. He checks every box, and then you pull another Michael Wilson, and you get another target for Kyler Murray. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I think obviously we'll see what happens. Zach Pascal's probably in his last year with the Cardinals. Rondell Moore certainly is. So like we would talk about this time next year, and it's like, well, we only have God hope Marvin and Michael Wilson, right? So always be thinking down the line, always be investing. When they're not homegrown guys of Austin, Ford, and Gannon, you just can't assume anything. And with Rondell Moore and Hollywood Brown and these guys, they didn't show enough. They just didn't.
Yeah, he played the most he's ever played, and you saw the production, and it came from different spots, and they got creative in how to use them. But like, as far as the consistent big playmaker that you thought you were getting out of Purdue, you saw the highlights coming out of the Big Ten of, just never materialized. It never came to fruition, which is unfortunate, because Rondell, I think, is a guy that's bought into the organization, bought into the coaching staff. Obviously, I think he's endeared himself to his play caller and Drew Petzing and his head coach Jonathan Gannon. But it's just one of those things that if they get a bigger, stronger, more consistent wide receiver in that building, he's going to become kind of a casualty of that. But like, I love what you said. Like, I think Michael Wilson, absolutely, like, the next step for him, and he talked about this, obviously he's got to kind of go back to the drawing board and see what he's got to do, staying healthy enough to go through the wears and tears and the rigors of an NFL season. And he's doing that, right? But like, why not? Maybe one of your 3 third-round picks, maybe your 4th round pick, you eye a player like a Brendan Rice at 6'3", almost 220 out of USC, that isn't as polished of a route runner, but can be physical and maybe develop and maybe turn out to be a playmaker for you, or a guy like Ricky Pearsall out of Florida via ASU, 6'1", 6'2", real nice route runner that can play a similar role and be kind of just you just put him out there if you need to at any of the route trees, and he'll be fine.
It's a good gamble. And speaking of gambling, our friends at BetMGM are going to hook you up right now. Everybody's been asking, how can I get those sweet, sweet bonus bets? And I'm going to tell you right now, Phoenix Suns popping off. You want to dabble on a little Coyotes action. They've been having a tough time. Maybe this bet with Bet5 get 150 is going to turn the Coyotes season around. I hope so. But regardless, head on over to BetMGM Sportsbook. The app right now is available to download for free. And if you use that bonus code PHNX, tell them PHNX Cardinals sent you, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets for a mere $5 deposit and laying a line on a standard odds price. Again, iOS or Android device, or check them out, betmgm.com. Tons of NBA games coming up here before the All-Star break. Do not miss out on an opportunity for over $100, actually $150 in bonus bets to splurge on whatever you want to do. Again, it hits on regardless of the outcome of your wagers. If you want to take a shot on the Coyotes ending their losing streak and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you're still getting those bonus bets. But regardless, download the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Bonus codes PHNX. Check out the show notes for full details. Now listen to my guy Damon Dog talk about in the disclaimer.
Problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
I like betting on the Yotes. I think that's great. Looking at just my Twitter timeline and following Craig and Leah Merrill of PHNX Coyotes and PD, like they've lost 7 in a row. Do factor. Who likes to bet on do factor? I do.
I do too.
I also like to go and play the scratchers out there. And Arizona Lottery has a fantastic new fun way to win. It's the Arizona Adventure Lottery tickets. And it's not just getting, the ticket itself. They've also got a couple other ways to win. But listen to this. You can go find your Arizona Lottery tickets, the new ticket promotion called Arizona Adventure. You can go and you can just get your standard lottery ticket at your Circle K, scratch it off, featuring 3 iconic landscapes, Cacho Peak, Monument Valley, Camelback Mountain, and you can win prizes up to $50,000, or you can go check in at geolocated adventures, 10 destinations across the state. So you don't have to be in Phoenix to win. You can be in Flagstaff, my beloved Yuma. You can be down in Tucson. Visit azadventure.com for details and directions. You check in at destinations and coordinate on the website, and online you can enter tickets to win up to $1 million, Johnny, in cash and Arizona travel prizes. Arizona Lottery, not just about playing games and scratching tickets. It's about just winning prizes. It's all about giving back to the state and its communities that are in that state. Visit azadventure.com for more information and how you can take an adventure for a chance to win $1 million in cash and Arizona travel prizes with AZ Lottery. Go to the azadventure.com.
Bo Brock, the Yuma King. I am the mock draft king, however. And a lot of mocks right now. Yeah, I am. I'm the mock draft king. Check out my mock, go phnx.com. Check out the PHNX mock draft tracker. We're going to give you the cheat sheet. A lot of these sites are free. Some of them may or may not have logins. And we're going to give you who they're drafting for free right now. Go phnx.com. A lot of people have been asking me that. And we're giving it out like Santa Claus here, draft season.
I think you being a self-described or self-tabbed mock draft king kind of irks me a little bit, especially when we go live and do our mock draft and you're just shooting from the hip like an old West guy, and you're not listening to the chat, you're not listening to your co-host me or Damon Dog, you're just firing off, draft this guy, draft that guy. You do well. I thought your mock draft that you have on gophnx.com was your finest work.
I appreciate that. I'm going to steal something from Colin Cowherd. He likes analytics, but he also likes manalytics. And that's what I think about when I do my mock draft on the PFF Draft Max Simulator. I'm a man, and I'm going to take my manalytics, and I'm also going to go with my gut. And my gut tells me to double up at receiver at 4 and 27. That's what I'm going to do.
You know who did that? You know who went off manalytics? Former GM here in the desert.
Yeah. Steve Keim was, the creator of manalytics for sure. So a lot of talk, a lot of action. I saw somebody in the chat earlier ask a really good trade down question. I'm going to see if I can find it. But basically, everybody's got trade down on the mind because Yeah, here it is. Brandon asking, Bird Gang fan, would you rather find a way to land 2 top 10 picks or sneak back in for a third first-round pick by trading up at the end of the first with 35? So I'll answer them. Bo can go. We had the dream of 2 first-rounders. It was called the Houston pick, and that unfortunately went by the wayside because of C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. I think that dream is dead. I don't think the Cardinals have any appetite in trading back up into the top 10. I think it's very realistic if they love a player and want to go from 35 to, let's say, 32, Michael, especially because you get that fifth-year option. Going from 35 to 32, then you have 3 first-rounders. Hallelujah. 3 guys making no money for at least 5 years, a wide receiver, a tackle, maybe a defensive tackle, and an edge rusher. That would be my preference.
Yeah, I think that obviously Monty Osford, I think I said it yesterday, would have to be somebody that he has full conviction of, that he's willing to trade some of that draft capital, and he should. I don't think you should hoard draft capital when you've got double-digit picks and you can maneuver the draft board. That's why so many people say that the Cardinals can kind of own this draft, even though Chicago has 2 top 10 picks. The Arizona Cardinals are loaded with draft capital. What is it? 6 picks in the top, is it 100?
90.
100, yeah, top 90. So the Arizona Cardinals
7 in the top 105.
Right. It's insane. If he sees, one of these tackles, and one of these tackles starts to kind of tumble down the board a little bit, even within the top 10 to kind of play into this question, an Olu Fashanu or a Joe Alt, or even a guy like Fuaga out of Oregon State, I think that if he feels enough that he says, like, that's a franchise caliber player, just like he did with Paris Johnson Jr., then do it. I think that it's well worth it. It's not going to have a quarterback tax to it, because I think quarterback's going to be off the board, and it's going to be a reasonable trade where you might have to part ways with, picks from this draft itself and very little future capital. Then I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, I think you could go from 35 to 31, 32. You're not going to trade with San Francisco, obviously, but 32 or 29, 30, you probably have to kick them one of your third rounders. Hopefully the latest of the trio would be your Houston pick. So are you comfortable trading away pick 9? I mean, have to be a special player, but then you also say to yourself, well, we just took somebody that we really like at 27. So I don't know. I actually think there's a better chance that they trade down at 35, just like last year. I think Austin Ford loves to be in that catbird seat atop the second round. Last year we saw it. He traded down with Tennessee, got future picks. I think that could absolutely happen. It's why I think, bringing us into our next discussion, Bo.
Can I just piggyback that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do think I think it's a great point, like, that we could very well see at the beginning of day 2 that Monty Osford, because he's got so much trust in his board. Him and Dave Sears do such a dynamite job at doing that when they see that they're within striking distance of a couple players that they like a lot, like, and you're sitting there, and there's a team that wants to come up and thinks that they're going to get their quarterback or something stupid in the top of the second round. Why not? Because now you're sitting there with Tennessee's 3rd round pick again this season. It's an easy way to accumulate assets, and I think that he absolutely loves that play, and I would love to see him do it again.
I'm not going to say my mock draft is the end-all, be-all, but it is a good kind of litmus test for all the talent that was available, not only at 35 for the Cardinals, Bo, but let me just read you off some names. So I had pretty, stock mock draft first rounder, a lot of the usual cast of players that we see, but then, like, here, the Cardinals got Darius Robinson at 35. Jackson Powers Johnson then was available. Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon. Troy Fatanu from Washington. The Commanders got Braylon Trice. Jordan Morgan was available. Zach Frazier, top offensive center from West Virginia. Jonathan Brooks, the running back, was available. Jaden Hicks, Chris Boswell. Kamari, the cornerback from Georgia. Cooper Bebe was available. BB was available. There's just a lot of really good players that are going to be an option for the Cardinals. And again, it's like, do Michael Penix and Bo Nix go in the first round? And if not, guess what? Teams are going to be interested in probably pulling another Will Levis 2.0. So I can't wait. I wish the draft was tomorrow. It would be off the chain, because we're going to have an exclusive PHNX Cardinals draft party. Details to follow in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, we get to talk about, guess what? Pick 4. And Marvin Harrison Jr., we want to give the Marvin the Marvinites a break today and focus on, well, if Marvin's not an option for this team, meaning he went second or third, God forbid, the trade down scenarios for the Cardinals are interesting. And even Josh Weinfuss of ESPN kind of alluded to that, Bo.
Yeah, he did. I was reading, ESPN's latest article. Here it is. Damon Dog with the ghost hands. Got it already up in the screen. Will the Cardinals draft Marvin Harrison Jr. with its number 4 pick? And I think it's like the biggest question for each and every one of the 32 NFL franchises. Said the Cardinals need a top wide receiver who instantly would upgrade the offense alongside Kyler Murray. Seems like it's a slam dunk. Should the quarterbacks go in the top 3 picks, Arizona will likely find itself looking at the Ohio State wide receiver at 4. Only reason Arizona wouldn't be around at 4 is if the general manager, Monty Ossenfort, trades down for what could be a haul of picks for this draft and beyond at 2025. And, I saw this and it instantly text Johnny, and I just said, what would you trade down for? If Marvin Harrison Jr. is at 4th overall, I just don't envision the Arizona Cardinals seeing like, okay, well, we can kind of outsmart this draft and we can do it again, second consecutive drafts, and trade down for a haul and then still get a good player, where I think that you're really punting on the chance to get a generational type talent that immediately adds to your team, adds, value to your team as far as its win share each and every year. Like, I think you couple Marvin Harrison Jr. with Kyler Murray immediately gives you maybe a win and a half on the season. Why would you do that? Like, what like collection of players could do that for you in this draft in 2025?
Yeah, I lied. I wasn't going to go in on Marvin. I definitely am. It would be an unforgivable error on Monty Ossenfort if he did something like this, because you're not getting the benefit of the quarterback tax. Like, there's some people out there that said, well, you have to trade down and somebody wants to come up for a quarterback. Nobody's coming up for J.J. McCarthy ever in the history of the world. That's not happening. So if Jaden Daniels is available, well, then who the hell went 3rd overall? Me? Joe Alt? Like, that's not happening either. So there's 2 options. You trade down if MHJ is gone with the benefit of the QB tax on Jaden Daniels or Drake May, or you take Marvin Harrison Jr. The Cardinals have Marvin Harrison Jr., number 1 on their board. Let me repeat that. He's the top player. They love him. Jonathan Gannon loves him. They talked about him throughout the course of the college football season. Kyler Murray loves him. I'm sure Ossenfort loves him. And again, we got people here in this local market that I respect talking about trade down regardless. That is not happening. He's the number 1 player of the last 2 drafts. And if you are so fortunate, you go down on your hands and knees to the football gods that he's available to you at pick 4, then you take him. What are we, if we're not in the business of drafting players like Marvin Harrison Jr. when they're available, disband the franchise. No longer, you cannot compete. Go to the CFL or go to the XFL or whatever the hell it's called and be a sub-tier non-NFL franchise. You should have your NFL franchise revoked if you're Michael Bidwell. And guess what? Michael Bidwell, sure as hell wants Marvin Harrison Jr. to sell tickets. He's sick of seeing Seahawk fans and Niner fans take over a stadium. You want to reinvigorate this fan base, get MHJ to sell you tickets. That is an easy layup. Have that marketing campaign ready to go weeks before the draft. So respectfully, again, I am fine with the scenario of a trade down if he's not there. In fact, I feel like it's a mandate. And I know Ossenfort can pull it off because as much as people love Will Anderson Jr., he got a team to trade up and trade premium picks for a non-quarterback. Like, he can make it work with Jaden Daniels or Drake May, but it's a laughable take. Stop talking like this is an option, people. Reputable media members who I respect, guys, talk it through. Not happening at all. Not happening.
It beautifully said by my co-host Johnny Venerable, no doubt about it. Like, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is there at 4 and you trade down, it's as you said, fireable offense. It's organizational malpractice. And what's the main reason for trading down? And what's the main reason for acquiring assets?
To use player.
Yes, to get an elite player, to package him together.
We just have all the picks in the 7th round. Let's just own the 7th round.
At that point, like, you become somebody working at TGI Fridays and Chili's, and you've got flair. You've got flair, and you just have flair to have flair, and that's why you have assets. Look at all my assets. Look at all of them. Aren't they cool?
That is a great asset. The PHNX Southwest Bias t-shirt. Yeah,
it absolutely is. This is one of my favorite assets, and I'm not going to give it up because it's one of my my premium players, right? But it's like I have all of these, but for what? If you're when it comes to it and the player presents himself to you, he shows himself to you. He's like, hey, I'm Marvin Harrison.
He wants to be on the team. He wants to play for this franchise that was charging players money for food up until 12 months ago. Accept him, Cardinals. They're going to. I don't know. Like, I'm not talking to Austin Ford and Gannon and Michael Bidwell. They've got this shit figured out. Everybody else, wake up. I know we have to fill airwaves for the next 3 months before the draft, and that's tough for some people. Not this show. It's like, print the jersey now. Jaden Daniels becomes a Patriot tomorrow. Print the jersey now. If the Patriots trade their pick to Minnesota or Vegas, do it now. I just, come on. We can have fun and intrigue at pick 27. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a discussion on pass rusher. Should they take a guard? Is that valuable? I know that's not sexy and doesn't do ratings and headlines, but good hell, what are we doing? If the best player of the last 2 drafts is available to you at 4 and fits a need, probably should take him.
No, you should take him. That's just a problem. Take him. Submit the card. I mean, yeah, you're going to see people try to tap dance around it and create, different storylines that are not realistic, and they're kind of straw man arguments. You can just poke right through them, right? But this show's already talking about what number Marvin Harrison Jr. should wear if the Cardinals get the opportunity to draft him. And I see you guys in the chat, Eddie, the Bears Prez talking.
Should we talk about that? Let's talk about the Bears.
Yeah. Let's get,
go ahead.
Warren, the team president, sat down with Walter Payton's son, who works, I believe, for WGM, and had an in-depth conversation. Who spoke, so well. So said nothing but nice things about Justin Fields, and that he's glad he's on the roster. And I'm paraphrasing everything, but he did say he's glad he's on the roster, and that he's trending in the right direction. All these wonderful things about Justin Fields, but at the end of the day, Warren doesn't make the roster decisions for the organization, and it is smokescreen season, and they have to put Justin Fields in the best light possible in order to get the best haul of in return for him when they inevitably trade him this offseason.
Josh Rosen is our quarterback. You guys are all having fun. Remember that? What was that, 5 years ago? Josh Rosen's our guy. They are feverishly attempting to trade Justin Fields, probably as we speak. Bo and I have been adamant. The deal's going to get done before free agency. Justin Fields' people want this done, want this resolved. And Justin Fields, unlike Rosen, which people were like, can this guy even play? Fields has a market. The free agent quarterback market is so bad. Justin Fields may net a late 1. Good for the Chicago Bears if they can get that. You better run to the bank and cash that puppy out, because if you screw around, if you dick around and allow that asset to fall, because here's what Justin Fields and his people are doing. They're playing nice too, because he wants a fresh start. He wants to get paid. If this gets ugly, then teams are like, well, I'm going to wait for this to blow up in your face, a la Steve Keim, having to trade Josh Rosen literally while the team was on the clock. You think the Chicago Bears want to operate like that? There's also blurbs out there like they've already decided on Caleb. They just need to vet him as a human being. Like that's going to happen within the next couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. Like they're going to meet with his family. They're going to meet with him at the combine. Everything's going to be copacetic. People are going to hug and kiss each other. And then it's going to be like, okay, that week to 10 days before the tampering period begins, and probably while we're in Indianapolis at St. Elmo's, people are going to be like, okay, who wants Justin Fields? And they're going to trade him the highest bidder, and it's going to be over. And all this extra stuff, this minutia of February, it's going to be laughable because it never really mattered. The president is doing what he does. What's a good president do? They put on a facade, right? They keep people calm. You got to keep the public calm. The people in Chicago that want Justin Fields are going to point to this and say, look, he's our guy, until he's not, until a month's time, and he's wearing a Steeler jersey with Mike Tomlin. That's happening. We know that's happening. Like I love Chicago fans. I grew up in Illinois. Bear fans are about as passionate as they come. Phoenix is fantastic. I'm going to tell you right now, pray for those people that think Justin Fields can be their quarterback. This is just come on, guys. He is a generational prospect. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea. He paints his fingernails. He does some weird stuff at times. To some people, say, whatever you want to do your thing. Be your own person. He's going to be your quarterback this year.
Right. I love it. I mean, a little inside joke, but for those who do watch CHGO Bears or follow Greg Braggs Jr., who's one of their hosts on that show, I mean, it's putting him through an emotional roller coaster and
It is.
buying $30 bags of Taco Bell on a nightly basis. He can't take it. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to believe at times. But he's still, going forward with his show, and that show firmly believes that Caleb Williams, like Johnny's saying, is going to be the next Bears quarterback.
And they were field supporters.
They were. And in there, like you said, the pre-draft process between the Bears and Williams will probably be, more formal to where it's going to be like, or less formal. It's like, hey, here's a good place to live when you play for us, instead of, really kind of picking his brain. Like they'll do their due diligence. They'll do their research, but Caleb Williams is going to be the next Chicago Bears quarterback. And, when you talk about Justin Fields and, trying to trade him at the height of maybe, his popularity or whatever, reminds me of when you were helping me and Damon Dog out on the blackjack tables out on Fremont Street.
That's right.
Us can kickers were able to find, I think a $5 table. We got hot, and Johnny was, the voice of reason, and Damon could back me up on this. He said, look, we're going to play this for a few more hands, and if we win, we're cashing out. Because, what it inevitably happens is your stack gets lower and lower, your value drops, and then you're going to cash out. And what you had was, a couple hundred units than you had, going into the place. And now you're probably down to like 5, if you even have any units to cash out.
Yeah. Everybody looked at us like we were nuts. And when you're up about $2 bills or $1.5 billion on a night like that, it's just like, hey, you know what? We're going to lick our wounds from the prior nights and get out of here ASAP. As much as the dealer would have preferred we stay. Because, that was going to, the tide was going to turn. And the tide will turn the longer this goes on with Justin Fields in Chicago. Like, this will get ugly. And to his credit, like, his people will make it ugly. But as Michael Evans puts it in the chat, he's won 10 games in 3 years. Like, nothing should be promised to you at any point. And he's played in the division with an aging Aaron Rodgers, and Detroit up until this year didn't really have their act together. And Minnesota is kind of wishy-washy. This was the year for the Bears to win the NFC North. And he basically let Jordan Love take his job. I know he's not replaced, but he let Jordan Love come into his division and steal what would have been their wild card berth and say, you know what? Everybody anointed Justin Fields last year. It's actually Caleb Williams that's in the top 10 list, and Jordan Love that everybody loves. And so Justin Fields misses time every year. He's not an accurate pocket passer, and he's probably a much better athlete than he is a quarterback. Now, I think it can work out for him, and I hope it does, but that is not something that you opt to go with instead of a guy that's making no money for 5 years. That's the best or co-best prospect since Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck. I mean, the Bears, the decision's made. It's done.
There's no reason for us to dislike Justin Fields. The only thing that
we like him a lot.
He was at one point a potential roadblock between the Cardinals and us being truly happy with Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the only thing that we could hold against him. But outside
and that time is over, by the way.
It is. It is. And like his playmaking, like to have more players with his playmaking ability in the NFL is a good thing. I love to watch that. I love to watch that electric play style. I'm just curious, like the rubber is going to meet the road where old 10-win Justin in his career, if he goes to Pittsburgh and he goes with perennial winner over 500 head coach Mike Tomlin, like what's going to happen? Is he actually going to finish?
I think he'll do well in Pittsburgh. Sure. Mike Tomlin is an elite head coach. I don't care what people say. When you win that many games in the AFC in that division, I hope it works out for Justin. And I think it would in Pittsburgh. But I think
Arthur Smith. You think that's a good pairing?
Well, Arthur Smith's an interesting guy in general, but Tomlin, and if Tomlin loves Fields, then I hope that they can be together. And I hope Justin gets another opportunity. He's going to. And I think good for him and his camp that if he's traded for a one, that shows the other team that's dealing for him is valued. But like, you also have to consider, like, the Chicago Bears want to put the first overall pick to bed weeks, maybe a month before the draft, so that they can focus on pick 9. So if they get a premium pick for Justin Fields, they can strategize what they're going to do with that pick. Like, they've set themselves up for success, like him or not, that they've made these trade backs with the Carolinas of the world, and they dealt away some premium players a few years ago. That's where their focus is. The Caleb Williams situation, it's going to be put to bed here unofficially in about a month. And then it just becomes, okay, what else do the Bears do? But I think it's interesting, like, as much as we tormented Bears fans toward the end of the year and we made the arguments for why you couldn't keep them, like, the Bears are going to have resolution. And now we move on to the Commanders and the Patriots. And that's why we've been so adamant. Like, and Cliff Kingsbury spoke about the Commanders today, which we're going to talk about here. And it was equally laughable, but it's like, who's on our proverbial hit list this offseason? Bears, Commanders, Patriots. Why none of them should be in on Marvin Harrison Jr., unlike the Cardinals. And speaking of the Cardinals, their official credit union, our friends at Desert Financial. Marvin Harrison Jr. is money, as is Desert Financial, for more than 84 years. Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicating to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make lives better. And they've got financial experts who are committed to their members and the community here in the Valley and beyond, offering financial solutions really tailored to helping real life people like myself. My family and I, we have Desert Financial, have never looked back, because on top of the checking account, savings accounts are available, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. And best yet, represent the Red Sea like me with the Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. It's fantastic. You can open up a free checking account right now today online at desertfinancial.com/Cardinals to get started. It takes a matter of minutes. Your debit card is going to be in the mail a few days after the fact, and then you're ready to rock and roll. But do so with our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union.
Yeah, then turn around if you make a great investment with your money, putting it in a great institution like Desert Financial. Maybe turn around and make an investment in your home with some new flooring, maybe some new carpeting, maybe some new hardwoods. It's a little daunting because it's such a big time process, but you don't want to do that. You're not going to do that with our friends over at Empire Today. Empire Today, you get to shop at home with the convenience of getting the right product for your home, your condo, wherever it may be. Get that quick, easy, convenient way to really bolster your living room, maybe your hangout spot, your dining room, wherever you need new flooring. You can get it with our friends over at Empire Today. They've got the virtual floor designer where you can design the floors, see what it looks like in your setting, in your dwelling. Do it today and start your way to save $350 on flooring by going to empiretoday.com/PHNX. That's empiretoday.com/PHNX, and you'll save $350 on your investment in your flooring with Empire Today.
I love this super chat. One of my favorites this week. Owen, tuning in from the UK. It's 12:20 a.m. here. Keep up the good work. Well, Owen,
Nice.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope you don't have to get up too early tomorrow, but we appreciate you. We appreciate all of our listeners overseas and here in the continental United States, but appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, PHNX Cardinals is international. The community is spreading. Big thanks to people like Owen. We met up with Jason, who works for Pro Football Ireland. He covers all the entire league, but he was out there on Radio Row. Jason is a big time Cardinals fan, and we got to connect with him a little bit in Las Vegas. And it's just one of the many people internationally that are excited about this organization.
Absolutely. Great follow, by the way, on Twitter. Doesn't he do the
no context cards?
No context Cardinals. Does a great job with that. Thank you to his team too by being so friendly while we were at Radio Row. Cliff Kingsbury getting friendly with the Washington media today as they let their new offensive coordinator meet the media and speak on what he's looking at for a quarterback, Bo Brack. And the comments, did it ring a bell? Did you have a little PTSD listening to Cliff talk about quarterbacks today?
He did mention Kyler Murray. I think he said that, you don't have to be as fast as Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray in his quote about that. You need a guy that this day and age that can move around, that has mobility. And, it's no secret. That's what organizations that are looking for. The days of the statuesque pocket passer are pretty much over. And, what he did describe, if you were to kind of look at the prospects and who could be available at Washington at 2, who's the most mobile, it's Jaden Daniels. His ability to throw a little bit more accurately on the run than maybe say Drake May. He fits the profile a little bit better, but I still think that there's a long way to go. But if I'm I am a betting man. I love to fire up the BetMGM app. If there's, good odds for Jaden Daniels at second overall, I'm going to put, a nice wager on him over Drake May.
Yeah, and I think again they've done a lot of shifting around since Robert Griffin III was their franchise quarterback, but that was really the last time they've had somebody that's excited that group, that crowd. And I know it's different ownership group, thankfully, no more Dan Snyder, but I don't know. I think there's much more cachet with Jaden Daniels than there is Drake May right now. But then you still have people on Twitter that staunchly oppose that notion, that consider Drake May co-number ones with Caleb Williams, and we're very much here for that narrative. But the mobility piece that Cliff specifically spoke on, like that hits all the big three right on the head. Like Drake, say what you want about Drake May, he's incredibly mobile. Now he's not Jaden Daniels fast, but I would say just as mobile as maybe Caleb Williams. I mean, they're both traditional pocket passers, but they run to throw, right? And I think that's exactly what you're looking for in a franchise quarterback. They're not a runner first, a la a Justin Fields that we just got done talking about. So I don't know. Cliff, to me, like the Commanders pick is so out of sight, out of mind. I don't know how you feel, because it's happening. Like I feel like what we saw at the end of the year, and we were rooting for them to win some games they were not competitive in. The Commanders understood the assignment at the end of the year. They understood that, okay, Ron Rivera is a lame duck head coach. None of these people are going to be back. Sam Howell keep throwing those interceptions, and they secured themselves the second overall pick. If you think at all there's a chance that they're going to say, we're actually going to trade down now, or we're going to pivot, we're going to take a receiver when we have Terry McLaurin and Johan Dotson, like lunacy. They're going to take a quarterback. They're picking second since the first time they had that second pick a few years ago with RG3. So I feel like Bears Commanders, we feel really good about the state of what's going to happen. It's just that pesky team in front of the Cardinals in New England. Like we just need a little bit more clarity there.
Yeah, there has been no smoke screening really out of DC at all. And I was able to catch up with some people from DC on Radio Row, and it just seems like they just have to scout and differentiate between who they want, May or Daniels. And like they still have, I think they've more held on to the pipe dream of Caleb Williams coming home where he played high school football than them going an opposite direction outside the quarterback position for Marv, or maybe one of these tackles, or trading down. It seems like, they're going to stick and pick, and they're going to take, the best quarterback available. And it's simplified things for teams that are picking after them, shortly after them, like the Cardinals and the Patriots.
Think about all the things that have had to go right for the Cardinals to be in a position where overwhelming favorite to get Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like, okay, you lose so many games, but also be competitive, win some games. And then, okay, the teams ahead of you all desperately need quarterbacks outside of the Bears, but the Bears have the shot at the number one overall pick, so they have to take Caleb Williams. And then Jaden Daniels has a Heisman season that inserts him into the conversation. Matt Prater misses those kicks. I mean, it's like divine intervention. It really is. Now, we're not at the finish line yet, but they put themselves in a tremendous position. We've talked about it all week. They're in a better spot than last year, and they're picking one spot down. Owen, $5 again. How many super chats to stop Johnny and his terrible mock drafts between now and draft day, Team Bo?
I thought he was the mock draft king. He just deemed himself
the mock draft simulator right now, Owen, and you can watch me draft 7 receivers because I might do it. Don't tempt me, but appreciate the super chat nonetheless. I feel like I get a lot of I feel like I get a lot of grief for my mock drafts. Now, number one, when I do those, I have to share my screen. I don't see the chat, so like where Bo and Damon Dog can cheat and look at the chat and kiss your ass, I have to just go in blindly and just say, you know what, I'm here to do the analysis. I'm here to pick the best players. If you're, at the end of the day, it's like if we were all on Austin Ford's ear, it would probably be tough to do his job on draft night. You just got to trust his gut, trust his board.
You make me sick sometimes the way you justify your actions. You won't listen to your co-host, who is also speaking on behalf of the audience. You won't trust that.
I feel like you withhold information when I draft. We might have to do a mock draft tomorrow. I know. Here's what we are going to do. We're going to have fan mocks tomorrow.
That's right. If you got a mock draft, hit us up on Twitter at PHNX_cards, or at Johnny Venerable, at Bo Brock, and at Damon Dog. Let's get inundate Damon with some mock drafts as well. Give him some love. Give him some follows at Damon DAWG on Twitter.
I love mock drafts.
There he is. Yeah, of course you do. Maybe
the best.
maybe one time, I don't know, Johnny, this might be too far-fetched. Do we ever give Damon the true controls of the mock draft?
I think we do, and then we say very little. I think Damon runs one of the next mock drafts that we do before the combine, and he has to narrate the whole thing. And Bo and I are just kind of sitting there, and then we let the chips fall where they may. I trust
That's too much
Damon.
power.
Yes, no, it's not. I would love that power. I would abuse it, but I would love it.
I'm gonna abuse it. Lad McConkey, welcome to the
Don't you
Cardinals.
dare. Stop.
Dallas.
He's not even a top
Turner.
5 guy. Not even a top 5 receiver, Lad. You've lost full control of the mock draft.
It's already been stripped away from you. Lad McConkey not atop my big board. You know who is? Our friends at Someburros. They're number 1, 2, and 3 on my big board. And their location here in the East Valley has been a savior for me and my family, especially because they are owned and operated as a family. And they were recently voted Arizona's most loved Mexican restaurant. And I can see why. They've got a new taco bar that is elite with a capital E. Plus, they've got margaritas to go. Fantastic. Their guac is first class, as is the customer service. They've been hooking up the Valley and Flagstaff upwards of, 40 plus years, since 1986. Check out the newest location in Goodyear and in Peoria and off of I-17. Visit them at Someburros.com to find a nearest Someburros to you. Get that green chili. Get the big-ass burritos. They're fantastic. And if you want to order ahead and pick up, you can do so at Someburros.com. Let them cater your next meal, big or small. I promise you, you've not had better Mexican food than our friends at Someburros. Try them out today.
We're the fam's headed to Someburros tonight, no doubt about it.
Ooh.
My son's gonna get the Nino's quesadilla. My wife's gonna get her standard number 9, the folded taco dinner with beans and rice, and might get myself a marg. But we can either get it to. The only choice you have to make is, do you get it to go, or do you go in and hang out and get the ambiance? Regardless,
sweet setup.
It is. It's a nice. It's not your standard, cesspool of a fast food restaurant where you got to either wipe everything down, or there's like a ball pit that's just 10 feet away from you that's just ridden with the disease. It's a nice. Every Someburros is beautiful, and I love to hang out there in there. But also there's the great convenience of bringing it home as well. And you can get those marks to go, which makes things easier. Also, which makes things easier is having a great cannabis gummy kitchen in your state of Arizona that we have, and we're partnered with them at OG's Brands. We love OG's Brands. They've got the best gummies in town, in the state, and they've got 2 new products for the new year. How about the big gummies? They got the big OGs, and they can get the OG's naturals for people who like to kind of get things more from the earth. They got those going on with the naturals, the vegan gummies that are made with live rosin, available in sweet clementine. It's just a delicious flavor. And then the big gummies, you can get 10 perforated slices on one big stinking gummy. It's 100 milligrams of THC, but you can just cut off a slice of whatever you'd like from OG's. They come in the delicious RSO flavor. Check it out for yourself, your local dispensary. See their full product line. It's not just gummies, for relaxing and increasing your vibes. They also have some that help you get to sleep. They got the sleep time gummy. It's going to help put you to sleep, keep you to sleep. Learn more at ogsbrands.com. That's OGEEZbrands.com. ogsbrands.com, and on your socials at OG's Brands.
Drop a like on this video. Let's get this pod to 300 likes. Victor, Johnny, do you trust Monty's gut if he says no to Marvin Harrison Jr.? No, I don't. If that happens, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that's probably a really good conversation to have. It's like, how much trust would Monty Ossenford lose if he doesn't take Marvin Harrison Jr., whether he trades down or takes Joe Alt? I would say that would be a big indictment on Ossenford. And nothing that I've seen or that we've seen, Bo, has led you to believe that that's something he would entertain, especially because, and we've talked about this, his successor, his boss, his GM in Tennessee was basically fired for trading away AJ Brown. And AJ Brown netted him a 1. So it's like, hey, look at us. We got multiple first-round picks. We're the Tennessee Titans. Oh, everyone's fired, and your franchise is on fire. And Mike Vrabel's also been fired. It's like, right, maybe you should draft the talent, keep the talent happy, pay the talent. Like, you F around in the NFL with star players in their prime, Hall of Fame level players, especially like AJ Brown seems like a good guy. He's got a little bit of baggage. He can be a diva, right? Like Marvin Harrison Jr. like the poster draft child for everything you want, and you're passing on that guy, like
Right.
you've got big time problems.
Right, and you're passing on a guy from an NFL factory when,
Yes.
what we talked about it last week. Ohio State has had an incredible run where they're just producing offensive and defensive rookies of the year and mainstays and the next crop of star NFL players, and I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. Basically he's taken out doing any of the homework for prospects if you want to, but Monty Ossenfort's going to continue to put in the work and figure out, who's the best option for him. And I'm almost positive he's going to land back on Marvin Harrison. And like you think about where Tennessee pivoted after AJ Brown, and like sure they had success in getting AJ Brown with a day 2 pick, right? But they didn't have success in finding his successor, even in the first round with Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks was that next phase, that next tier of wide receivers in that draft beyond a Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave out of Ohio State. Then you had guys that like Burks, who's busted. I think everybody can agree with that at this stage, 2 years in. And then like the Jahan Dotsons, who hasn't been as consistent as Washington probably would have liked so far. Those are the next wave in that class. And that's where things get a little less, I guess, sure thing down the draft board. And I think Monty, he would do him a complete disservice if he thought, he got too smart for the room and thought, you know what, I can kind of hack this draft. I can do it again. I can get a haul and set myself up for future success, where truly setting yourself up for future success is drafting Marvin Harrison as soon as possible.
And it's also like Ossenfort, the places he's been, Drew Petzing, Jonathan Gannon, like they're not anti-receiver. All those teams, as you mentioned, Tennessee invested in wide receivers, Cleveland's invested in wide receivers, Philadelphia, Minnesota, like it's not like, well, they're the Patriots with Belichick and they don't use premium picks because they busted so much. It's the Patriot way. Like, no. I know Ossenfort was in New England, but he also had Tom Brady, and that's the outlier situation. Like, you have to have weapons in today's NFL. Like, look at some of the teams that were in the Final Four in each respected conference. Loaded skilled players, loaded receiving cores. Now, did they all come top 5 to 10? No, but also those teams were not presented with an option to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Or guess what? They take him. Just like if Marvin Harrison Jr., and we wouldn't be having this conversation, if he played edge rusher, they would take him. Like he's the equivalent of like a Nick Bosa coming out and playing edge and being can't miss. But I think because he plays receiver, there are still folks out there that frankly say, fair or not, that I don't think that position translates to wins. I see this all the time on Twitter, and I respect your opinion if this is what you think, but wide receivers don't win Super Bowls. No, but quarterbacks do, and you have to support your quarterback, and you have to get them talent at the position. So I think it's the stigma of the position for some people, which, fair or not, you're going to think what you think. But again, take away his position. He's an elite player from an elite program, as you mentioned, Bo. He checks every box. He fits a need, and he's almost as can't miss as you can get. Why are you passing on that player? To trade down and to have to argue and talk yourself into a third or fourth tackle or a third or fourth receiver, so then you can get a one or a couple ones, and you don't know where those picks are going to be. Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon have to win games this year. Mm-hmm. And if you're continually invested into 2026, what happens if Kyler Murray gets hurt this year and things go south? Maybe you're on the clock, fair or not, in 2025. You might want to have a locker room that didn't look like the locker room that Bo and I were in at the end of this year. That has some dogs, has some players, have some alphas, win games. You had your mulligan year last year, and you had some positives, but you get some alphas in this locker room now.
Yeah, and Marvin Harrison is absolutely that. And I think Monty Ossenfort has shown in his short tenure so far that he will take he'll sign the guy that's easy to get back on the roster that he believes in. And I don't think that he's going to trade again. Like he needed to trade to accumulate assets last year to kickstart this
we were both
rebuild.
in that camp.
Doesn't need to do it. He needs to now infuse this roster with talent. And it starts like you have the draft capital to get Marv and then do it with the rest of the way out. And then also take some of that draft capital and turn it into future draft capital. But the 4th overall selection Like you're just getting too cute at that point. If you're starting to kind of move off, if you move off of the opportunity to draft Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh, and with the so generous $20 super chat and the generous message, final super chat, just to say you two and PHNX are the clear best source of cards news worldwide. Thank you so much, Owen. Been listening for a while, so worth every penny. Keep it up. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is gone, what do you do? Trade down? What's the lowest you go? First of all, thank you so much, Owen, for your countless super chats and most importantly, your support, your support every day, your ears, your eyes on the product, and we do our very best. Bo works harder than anybody in this Cardinal media market, and we feel like we got a pretty special thing going because of all of you. So thank you so much. I would not go past like the early teens. I think that would be a mistake, and even then, you're rolling the dice, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be teams that in this scenario, it's obviously Marvin's off the board, right? And
Yes.
you're in a position to strike with a quarterback hungry team wanting to come up for Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Vegas, Denver, Minnesota, they're all within, what Johnny said in a fine spot, just as, Houston was last year, to where you can, get a haul in return and then stay within striking distance for a really good prospect. And yeah, I think if Marvin is off the board in the worst of all realities, the Arizona Cardinals, they make the best of it by trading down in for a haul of picks, because I just don't think, like we're saying, all these great things we're saying about Marvin, like that's what the rest of the class presents to you is nothing's a sure thing. Like, sure, you get the best tackle in the draft and Joe Alt, but he's a 20-year-old guy at Notre Dame. Like, I think that there's not necessarily like red flags as far as his character, but as far as, how's his game going to translate from the Golden Domers to the NFL? And there's always a big if, where I think that there's less questions about Marvin. Like the word generational has been thrown around about him, and there's not generational thrown around about the rest of these players, these top players at their other respective positions.
Atlanta picks 8th. I think you're hoping for an Olu Fashanu there or Roma Dunze. That's not a guarantee. Then you go down to, some of these teams in the early teens, like Denver at 12 and the Vikings, right, at 10. And then the Raiders at 13 or wherever the hell they're at. Like, you're going to be looking at maybe a Dallas Turner, maybe Fuega, the tackle from Oregon State. Tyler Guyton at that point. You're just, it's again, 3rd or 4th tackle, 3rd or 4th or 5th wide receiver. That's why I would argue with a team like Denver, if they want to come up, you have to have those parameters in place before the draft, because it would have to include a Patrick Surtain. Like the Vikings, I don't think you could get Justin Jefferson, and I wouldn't want to trade Justin Jefferson to the Cardinals and not also get future first. Like, I think you and I talked about it. You can get Pat Surtain in a future one to come up to 3, but I would want a proven, cheap stud player from one of those teams in the teens. Your draft picks aren't good enough. Not this year, not with all the talent that I'm passing on in the top 10. Because Olu Fashanu, Joe Alt, Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., if I'm not leaving with one of those guys, I'm sorry, I can get a Dallas Turner every year. I can get a Fuega every year. You need to give me one of your best players on your roster that's making no money, that's in his early to mid 20s, that can help me right now. Because, shit, man, this team, we just talked about it. You got to have players that are ready to help you win in 2024. It can't all be about the future. And I don't, Atlanta, are they playing coy? Like, they might, that would be the perfect trade down, in my opinion. You go to 8 and you really set yourself up ahead of Chicago, by the way, to take away something that maybe they'd value.
Yeah, I was trying to, Terry Fontenot, the GM of the Falcons, recently spoke with the NFL Network, and I was trying to see what his answer was, but I believe he was talking very complimentary of Justin Fields when he was asked about it. But obviously we're on air here and haven't been able to hear what he said. But that is a team that it understands now, after being in quarterback purgatory for the last couple of years, that you need it. Like, you can draft all the big skill players you want, from Kyle Pitts to Drake London to Bijan Robinson. It doesn't mean jack shit if you don't have somebody to get him the football. And that the organization, Terry Fontenot, probably is at the end of the road if he doesn't figure out the quarterback position, just like the head coach he just fired this on Black Monday and Arthur Smith found at the end of the season. So they understand it, and they're going to be aggressive. And so is Denver. So is Vegas. There's going to be teams that are going to do whatever they can to get up the draft board. If the Arizona Cardinals, unfortunately, are in a position where they can't get Marvin Harrison Jr., that plays to their absolute advantage.
Googsy, have to stay in the top 10. Future ones are nice, but until you get to the draft season, it ends up being an underwhelming class. Great point. People are already underwhelmed with next year's class, especially at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
This is the class that you go all in for. These are the players. We love Marvin, but no one's going to be surprised if Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze are making Pro Bowls, are stars. Joe Alt's a top 5 tackle in 3 years. Alu Fashanu is an elite pass protector already. I don't love Brock Bowers. Is he a generational tight end prospect? I don't know. People are calling him that. You don't F around with that. Too much of a good thing. I love first round picks. But again, I've seen a lot of first round picks bust. And that was Steve Keim and Rod Graves, but it happens to great GMs. Howie Roseman misses on a first rounder like every other year. When you're presented with it, you have a golden ticket. That's what I call this. Pick 4 is a golden ticket. Either you trade down and hopefully still get a good player, or you get a generational prospect in Marvin Harrison Jr. You don't screw that up, Bo.
Right. Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. Remember that? We had the video from the Vikings war room. They're like, really? They took the TCU wide receiver? It's hilarious.
Whoops.
Yeah, Roseman at one point was a 4-letter word in Philadelphia. Between when it won the Super Bowl and then their return to the postseason with Jalen Hurts and JG and crew, Roseman was not a favorite there in Philly he is now.
Check us out, gophnx.com. It'll quickly become your favorite website. Check out my mock draft, and also check out the PHNX merchandise locker. One of these days, we're going to have some new gear from PHNX Cardinals, but in the meantime, you can check out all of the phenomenal tees, sweatshirts, and more. And if you become a diehard right now, you can pick up a free hat like this one, or a t-shirt like my guy Bo Brack is rocking for free by becoming a diehard for the year. Every year you're a diehard, you get a free piece of gear from the locker. You do not want to miss that, as well as the PHNX Cardinals Discord, which my friend, my co-host, Bo Brack, dropping exclusive content you can't find anywhere else, live from Radio Row. Plus, we got the Combine in just under 2 weeks. We're going to be in Indianapolis, and we're going to be churning out exclusives for the Discord, only for the Discord, only for diehards, Bo.
No doubt about it. And get us those mock drafts before we get Damon Dog Mock 1.0. We got to get your mock drafts for our breakdown tomorrow. So tweet them at us. If you're part of the Discord, hit us up in the member Discord. You'll get atop, of course, the stack of mocks that we're going to have ready for you tomorrow on Friday afternoon, a fresh new edition of PHNX Cardinals. If you missed in the show, find it out wherever you find podcasts. Also, leave a review, leave a rating. We got a Saturday audio-only edition of the podcast coming your way as well. Don't miss out on that. And, of course, a Monday edition, Monday morning. There's one right there for you to start your week off on the right foot. For award-winning producer Damon Dog, and, of course, my co-host Johnny Venerable, the mock draft king, have a great rest of your Thursday. We'll talk to you on Friday right here, PHNX Cards.
We all silly like the mayor.